This is the JWN Podcast. Travis Maynard is the general manager of food and beverage and hospitality at the Volvo Car Stadium in Daniel Island, South Carolina. Before he took that gig, he used to book shows and events in the Columbia area. So when the opportunity came up to create a new intimate concert series in the clubhouse area of the stadium, he jumped at the opportunity. This is an interesting discussion about building music scenes and organizing creative events, and I know you'll enjoy it. The first show of the Club Court concert series is happening on Thursday, July 8th, and it features Atlanta singer-songwriter Angie Aparo, as well as previous podcast guest Jordan Igoe. So you know I'm a little excited about that one. I'll put a link to get the tickets in the show notes, or you can visit volvo.jwnpod.com to see all of their upcoming events. Just be sure to use offer code JWN when you purchase a ticket. That lets them know that you heard about it here. All right, let's get right into my conversation with Travis Maynard.
Welcome to the podcast.
I'm glad to be here. Like I said, I've listened to a few episodes and I absolutely enjoyed it, especially the Jordan Igoe show. That was really cool. She was a great guest.
She came in here and she was so unsure of what to expect.
Really?
And I don't know if it comes across as much. Me knowing it, like it starts off with kind of very like, and we had known each other not like very well, but just kind of, she knew who I was. I knew who I was a fan.
Right.
And so, you know, slowly but surely she started to get comfortable and then forget that she's talking into a microphone.
It didn't come across that way, and she's got such a good sense of humor. You know, it seemed like, so if she was a little uncomfortable at the beginning, that seemed like part of that. You know what I mean? And it just, she was great. That was really cool.
Her performance that she did, I mean, she's just, I'm like, man, you could wrap that, package it, sell it. It's done. Her vocal ability,
absolutely,
her control she's just such a professional. And
it was so funny because I was stuck in traffic listening to it, and like as those songs came up, I was like, oh, got to pull that up, you know. And I listened to a couple of them. I was like, gosh, she's good. And then
that EP, that most recent EP, I think is more representative of where she is now.
Okay,
with her music, because that first record is very like, it sounds like musicians having fun. Right.
Yeah, and I listened to a couple of those songs. I was like, I know this from, not those songs, but I was like, I know this girl from somewhere. And I still have my Gmail account that I used, 2009 to 2000, or maybe earlier than that, to 2012 for concert promotion, club booking and everything. And so I go in there all the time and I search people's names that I run into now. And I'm like, oh yeah, I booked her at this place called the White Mule back in 2010 or whatever. So I text her. I was like, "Hey, we've met before and chatted before."
Man, all right. So let's dive in.
Sure.
To what you do and what you represent to the creative community in general, because there's a lot of questions, and I'm gonna propose to you some weird things as well.
Sure.
And I know, and you've also got something you're working on here in the Charleston area. So let's kind of talk about you real quick. What is it that you do? What's your quote unquote elevator pitch job description?
Right. So I always struggle with that, but the elevator pitch. I am the general manager of food service and hospitality at Volvo Car Stadium. So the way these stadiums and arenas work is there's a venue management, typically like Live Nation, for example. They'll have the venue, and then they'll contract with a food service provider. So Volvo Car Stadium's independent, but I contract with the Charleston Tennis Center as their food service provider.
So so Volvo, that entity, the Volvo Stadium, not the car company. They just own it, I guess, or I don't know what that.
They're just the title sponsor.
They're the title sponsor. So it's independent. In other words, there's venues you go to in any city that are owned by, say, Live Nation, and they pretty much have a lock on it. It's so it might be. This might go into something I want to talk about later, so we might just jump into it right off the bat.
Okay.
there's something weird about down here in Charleston, and I think Savannah gets it too, like the coastal cities down here in the South, where bands just don't come. Most touring acts don't even hit South Carolina. They skip over Columbia. They go from Charlotte to Atlanta.
Oh, they skip over Columbia. That's where I was for 8
and
or 9 years booking shows.
Is it because they don't have? Is it because these large companies that like Live Nation don't own property here?
I mean, I would say for those Live Nation exclusive tours, yes.
I'm always, but even smaller bands, like I'm like, what are you doing?
So that's where I can't attribute it to any large company or everything. And that being said, Live Nation does a great job. And there's a reason they're, where they are. And then, AEG is another large company and they actually book the Volvo Car Stadium. So, and actually being you're from a punk band background, you may know, the buyer down there, Chris McLean, he was you know him?
I don't know him personally.
Yeah, but you've heard the name.
Yeah.
Another guy, whenever I got down there, I was asking, I was like, so AG Books, who's y'all's guy? And they said that name. I was like, my goodness, I was like, is that the same guy I worked with? He used to be with another promotions company in Columbia, back in 2007. And yeah, of course, we settled shows together so many times. So it was just wild that, all that works its way around. But anyway, back to your question about, why is, let's say, South Carolina is a tertiary market. From my experience years ago, and now at this point, I don't deal with that. So I wouldn't be able to speak to much of the talent buying and concert promotion side on that level. And I couldn't speak on it at that level back then either. But when I was doing it on my own nickel, Columbia was, Charlotte, they'd hit that, go right to Atlanta. We'd be able to get some shows on Sundays and Mondays, times like that when they needed they needed a place to get a hotel, or whatever it was.
And I feel like we get like bands on their third or fourth leg of the tour where they there are some artists that will go around and kind of hit those spots that they skipped over the first time around. And just to kind of, because I think those bands are kind of brilliant. Just judging from back when I played in a band and we would tour, the best shows we had were always in these places you never heard of.
Yeah.
Because they just didn't have a lot of the bigger bands coming through. So you play in Chicago, you have a hard time drawing an audience because they have so much to
a lot of competition.
Yeah, to get started and to build an audience. But you go into like the middle of Wisconsin and the whole town shows up.
Yes, absolutely. And that was one of our strategies was we'd get bands that were too big or bigger than our room, on occasion, like on a Sunday, that they needed that an agent that I worked with a lot on smaller bands, he'd be like, hey, I've got this coming through. Can you squeeze it in on a Sunday? I'm like, absolutely. I was like, that show would normally play up the road at the, back then, I guess it would have been, the township or something like that. Like we might squeeze a show into this 300 cap or 750 cap room that would normally play a 1,500 seat theater. And we would do it and make some money or not, but it was worth that just to get that name in there for sure.
Right. And if you can attach one of the local artists and let them open up the show,
absolutely,
and then kind of throw up their value as far as
then maybe
next time.
They're headlining 3 months later or something.
Exactly.
Like
yeah. I mean, it's a formula that's been going on forever. I mean, getting the opening slot in a smaller town. If you're a band, let's say you're a Jordan Igoe, we'll bring her back up.
Right.
And you've got a kind of regional or national act coming through in a smaller area. Guess what? You can put her. Now, if you're in a band like my band back in New York, we never got those opportunities. That would never happen. If a giant band, Radiohead, comes to town, no.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point.
4 million other bands that are better than you and ahead of you in line. But if we were in that little town in Wisconsin and Radiohead comes through, they'd be like,
true.
These are our hometown heroes. We're putting them there.
You're right. Yeah, because being in New York, if I was the buyer and I said, "Hey, I've got this local act I want to throw in," they'd be like, "No,
Yeah,
no, but
no opener, or we'll bring our own."
right."
Yeah.
But in Columbia, South Carolina, on a Sunday, yeah, you could do that, and we always did try to do that. But back to your.
We'll jump around.
Why, sure. Why South Carolina and why it doesn't get those acts? And I'll speak Columbia. So that's where I did all of this stuff. It's where I started doing it. It's where I finished doing it. We found that at the time when I got in there, so 2004, I opened a tiny little bar, started doing a little music. We found that the support wasn't there, mostly due to just the fact that there had been a vacuum for so long that music had went from the Hootie and the Blowfish days when it was these original clubs where, I mean, there's, I've got Facebook friends that work those Rockefellers and those clubs back then that post these old calendars. And I look at it and I'm like, it's 1996 or whatever. And it's the entire month, every day. And 12 of those days are names you would know.
Yeah.
Like everything from REM to Skinny J's to, Jump Little Children to all this stuff. And then there'll be
Driving and Crying.
Yeah. And then there'll be some big name in there that you're like, whoa, like that is wild. And I just can't, it blows my mind that they supported that. And there were like 3 clubs back then that were doing that. But then it all stopped. I don't know why. And then people came in to fill those gaps. And friends of mine like Charles Wilkie and Dave Britt that had a company called All In Entertainment back then, they brought it back to where it was admirable for sure. And I kind of came on their heels. And they did a great job bringing it back when there was a time where all these clubs just kind of moved on and were doing something else. And during that time, it became cover bands, solo acoustic acts in the corner, the wing joint, and all that stuff. And once that formula was in, it was like nobody wanted to take a risk and open a music club where you had to like draw based on whoever's playing. I mean, that is hard work, It
is very hard.
But if you can serve chicken wings and put a guy singing, Creed covers in the corner, then
and like literally 90%
in 2003,
of the audience,
that's going to do it, And
90% of the audience does not care.
And
that's the saddest part. Like doing those kind of gigs to me is I think it's kind of, for the musician, it's probably great because it's a great place to go work out.
Yep.
It's like your gym.
Yeah, that's true. And that's, you and Jordan were talking about that too.
Yeah.
And she was talking about, you're asking like what goes into what she plays in those situations. She's like, if nobody's paying attention, I'm going to play something I like, and I'll play maybe some originals. If nobody's really paying attention, see if I can grab a couple of people. But yeah, it's a hard pill to swallow. And we kind of, we looked around and like I said, those guys, Charles and Dave and some other folks were doing really good. And they were nice enough to take me under their wing and kind of, explain some industry terms to me, let me know that, when I was getting screwed, when I wasn't. And they had the bigger rooms and a couple big festivals.
Right.
And I came in and filled this smaller space to where we could get some other acts that they may not be interested in doing, or they couldn't put in 1,000 cap room, but I could put them in 150, or a 350, something like that. And worked with those guys, and man, we all killed ourselves trying to make it work. And there were flashes and times where it felt really good for, a year. And but then at the same time, you're looking at Charlotte, even the smaller clubs up there, the smaller clubs in Atlanta, like Eddie's Attic, down in Atlanta, or the Evening Muse up in Charlotte. Those were, I don't even know if they're around. I know Eddie's Attic is around. I looked at their calendar recently. I'm sure the Evening Muse is. That was a great little club. But we'd look at those, and those were like 100 cap listening rooms. And sometimes we couldn't get those same acts that are headlining there into Columbia in great rooms. And it was really tough. And And like I said, we did get it to a point to where we were doing really well and we were getting some big names and we got creative. I mean, we put shows, parking lots, we put them in art museums, close down a street for a festival, whatever we could do to get stuff to happen. And we did find a lot of success in subgenres.
Right.
Like,
right. I mean, that in Columbia, that festival they do every year in the middle of town with
St. Pat's.
No. It's, my brain totally blanked on the name of it. It's maybe a record store that sponsors it. But
Jam Room?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Studio.
Yeah.
Jay.
Okay.
Yeah. Jay Matz and those guys are great.
I mean, I went there. I up until I didn't go last year, obviously, but I saw Guided by Voices in his Golden Messenger there.
Yeah.
I saw Superchunk there. You know what I'm saying? Like all these really cool acts that that's my music. Like,
okay.
That's like, oh my goodness, that I only have to drive like a couple hours to go see it. No problem. But I'm like, why doesn't Guided by Voices come down
just a little bit further?
Just come down 26, hang out at the beach. I promise you, there's plenty of great places to drink.
Yeah.
Plenty of terrible places to drink it too, if you want.
Absolutely.
But I feel like seeing Guided by Voices at something like, well, now the music farm's gone. But there are places that are appropriate for those types of bands to play down here, and they just don't.
Yeah,
I saw Mac McGowan, who's the lead singer of Superchunk, and he played solo. He played the Tin Roof, which I don't know if you've been to the Tin Roof.
I'm familiar.
It's tiny.
Yeah,
it's I mean, the place where you watch the music is.
Right, like it's, corner stage kind of. Yeah, it's
very, very tiny, and that was super awesome. But of course, he was doing like a very small like side project thing on his own, and so as fun as that was, it's like, okay, but can we get Superchunk down here?
Right. Yeah, and to that point, Jam Room, those guys would do really cool stuff like that. If I remember correctly, they were doing it at the art museum downtown, like right outside in the courtyard and everything on Main Street. I think that was, again, I've been gone for a long time. That was 9 years ago or 10 years ago, but they were always doing great stuff. Those guys worked their tails off. And we're always good partners. We would do stuff with them.
Huge crowd shows up for it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there are people that will come.
Yes.
If you have a decent festival, we had a thing going down here. Down in the Charleston area for years called Culture Clash.
Okay.
Which was a multi-arts festival. And it was the spirit of it, the way it was run was very underground, very independent, but huge, like on a large scale. They did it at the old Navy base. They had some warehouse areas that they set up they put multiple stages, some outside. I mean, the pinnacle, I think, of that whole experience was they set up a winch and a pulley thing, and they created this pool outside, maybe a foot deep, using like tarps, and I don't know how they did this. And
trying to picture this,
they set up ramps, and they had guys doing water skiing tricks,
really,
in the middle of like a parking lot. It was complete, like trying to describe it sounds stupid and insane. I would have to pull up pictures of it too.
I'm picturing
to prove
something
to you that this happened.
Me and my friends did in junior high in a ditch with a tarp when I was growing up in rural Oklahoma. Sound about right? Is what I'm imagining. Yeah, except it was huge.
It was big enough to pull them and take them over a ramp so that they could do flips and things like that.
That is wild.
It was so wild. And then they would have, like, next to that would be a tent, and there's a burlesque show going on.
I was going to say, so that's...
And roller derby girls
exactly
putting on shows in different parts of the
when
space.
You're in these third tier markets, that's the kind of stuff you have to do, because you want to get a few thousand people out. You got to have a lot of stuff going on for all these different little pockets of people that even go to things like that, and doing
stuff in the woods. They've got there's this like nature preserve thing over up 61 where they're doing music festivals there, but they're kind of like low key, but people show up. People will camp out.
Interesting.
And they'll do like these kind of like all different types of stuff, mostly kind of on the jam band type of thing. But
sure.
I saw like Andy Frasco, is that his name? Am I getting his name wrong? I saw some pretty decent like acts out in the middle of nowhere. Like just you're like, what is going on here?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I love those kind of things where you kind of stumble upon them because you're just going to see a band you heard of or something, and it's like this wild carnival somehow.
Well, I think we've built this kind of scene here out of necessity because no one's coming here. Well, I shouldn't say no one. A lot of acts aren't coming here.
Yeah.
There are acts that we get good shows here, but not enough, I think.
Right.
I don't know.
I agree. I definitely agree.
So we've built up, now we have our own little kind of things that like in this region, you go see Two Slices. I don't know what kind of draw they have outside of Charleston, but they can pack a parking lot show at the Royal American.
Yeah.
And okay, great.
No, it's so true. And I think that you do in these markets that kind of get overlooked, it is bringing so much more, like the art stuff, packaging that with the bands. And I mean, me and a couple guys we did a festival in Columbia for 3 years, and we would have kept it going for 20 if it wouldn't have got completely destroyed in a storm the last year. And everybody's like, nah, we're out. And I was like, come on. And, but it was, we were like, okay, what do people in Columbia like? 90s rock. Okay. What else do they like? Chicken wings. So we're like, well, we're going to do, modern rock, chicken wing festival. The music evolved to be something a little bit different, but we did, it was chicken wings.
Yeah. Keep a Southern type of thing.
And Columbia has so many wing restaurants. And so what we did was we leased booths to all of them. And they came in for a couple $100. We set them up with the festival tent and all that stuff. And they cooked on site. And part of the deal was they have to sell a 3-wing sampler for $2 or whatever it was. Yeah. So everybody could get all kinds of wings.
From all the different places.
Yeah. And then we had, we had different categories that you could win, best mascot, best wing, hottest wing, all this stuff. And we had some, local celebrity, like, do that part.
The weatherman.
Yeah, we had, and the radio stations are tasting wings, and a USC football player or something. And it did really well. And actually, I think Angie Aparo played one of those as well. And so did Craven Mellon. And that's the thing about this concert series that we'll get to eventually. I ended up, it's been 9 years since I booked a show. I'm like, well, I'm just going to call the people that did really well for me 10 years ago, that I liked working with. But we did that festival, but we knew we couldn't just, put Tonic up on a stage and expect 5,000 people to show up. You have to offer a lot in Columbia, and down here, not as much, but to the same point, you have to package things. It's not as easy as downtown Atlanta, where they just have 7 freaking stages that are got, huge names going, and people, I mean, they do a lot of art and stuff too, as well, to go with it, but it's about the music.
Yeah. But I love when they bring things. I love showing up to something and seeing something so unexpected and being turned on to it. Yeah. And also witnessing other people, see something and just go, wait a second. I remember there's this artist, Pip the Pansy. I had her on the podcast as well. And she does like keyboard electronic pop type of thing, kind of, picture like a Lady Gaga-ish, but a little bit more like eclectic.
More Lady Gaga than Lady Gaga is?
Well, I mean, she doesn't have the budget Lady Gaga has.
Right.
But she's got talent, and she also is entertaining. She goes all out. But she'll be playing in a dive bar, and you'll see this person set up like flowers all over the place, and a light show, and she's got masks, and she plays the flute, and she keeps it in like a thing behind her, so she pulls it out like it's a sword and starts playing the flute.
And what's her name?
Pip the Pansy. I'm telling you,
and she's got a show. I'll check out that show.
It's an unbelievable thing to watch her perform.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I saw her was at the Royal American, and it's a dive bar. You're not expecting that. You're not expecting that. And all of a sudden she gets up and starts playing, and you could just see everybody just kind of like, what is going on here? Like, what am I
I
hearing?
love that.
And
when that happens,
within, within a song, she's got the whole place jumping,
yeah,
So I feel like we're a receptive crowd down here. If you're good,
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
You can take someone by surprise. Yeah. Mix it up. Putting dance elements into a rock and roll show at the same time. Like, okay, the band stopped and now over on this stage, there's going to be a crew of people dancing. And you're like,
yeah,
okay, let me watch this and see what this is about. And you have those are the moments where I feel enriched and I feel alive. And I'm like, this is how it should be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like this circus of talent, people.
Yeah, a lot of sensory activation going on.
Oh yeah.
And the Royal American, that's a place I've never been. And hearing y'all talk about it, I was like, that place sounds awesome.
I mean, I'm saying July 3rd, you should go there. I don't know if what is today?
30th.
The 30th. That's this Saturday, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, this won't come out till Monday, so people listening will not.
Yeah, it's July 5th.
What I'm telling you is, if you want to go there, Two Slices is playing on the 3rd, and that's a good show to go see. Kind of Charleston come out.
Yeah.
You'll see all the people that you'd want to see if they're in town. All of the different musicians and artists and creators.
That's where they hang out.
They're going to come.
Yeah.
They'll be there at some point that night if they're not working somewhere else.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a great place to kind of put yourself right in the middle of the music scene that's down here.
Cool.
Or I shouldn't say the entire music scene, but like that kind of indie music scene that really has thrived in this environment because of all the things we had just discussed about,
right?
Not being on everyone's touring destination.
And I think that it's okay to be that kind of market. Just the promoters and the club owners have to accept it and then lean into it, right? And that's when we go back to the subgenres. Like that's where we found that we could make things work, as we'd find these pockets of people that wanted these shows that didn't come at all, and when we could figure out great example is we got into the Texas red dirt country. So it's are you familiar with any of those kind of bands like Cross Canadian Ragweed?
Probably not.
No. Yeah.
I might, but I come across bands like that.
Yeah.
And I always am surprised. I'm always like, oh, I didn't know I would like this.
Right. And some of the bigger names would be like your Billy Joe Shaver. I won't go through all the list, but it's a lyrically driven Southern rock kind of thing. It's, Waylon Jennings influenced with, with Skinner, ZZ Top kind of.
Well, now I know a Ryan Bingham.
Perfect.
I love Ryan Bingham.
Great example. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And Justin Townes Earl.
Unfortunately, that album his dad just put out is like gut wrenching. I'm like, I don't even understand.
I haven't listened to it yet, really.
He did an album of almost all covers.
Yeah.
Of just Steve Earle is who I'm talking about.
Right.
Put out an album of his son who just passed away of his songs.
Oh,
and
brutal.
then he also put a song, like a tribute song that he had written for him on there. And it's hard to listen to. You're like, how did he do this?
And I will probably love it. I love that
so
sad
good.
And Steve Earle, legends, amazing, and I'm sure it's excellent. I'll check that out. But Ryan Bingham is a great example, and there's different. Yes, yeah. So those guys kind of came after the guys that I'm kind of talking about. But there's 3 or 4 different lanes of that Texas, Oklahoma red dirt country, and they are definitely a part of it. And but they are all in their own kind of lane of it. But those are perfect examples. So I grew up in Oklahoma, and I was familiar with some of these bands. And I was working at a restaurant in Columbia called Willie's Oyster Bar and Grill.
Mm-hmm. Willie's Oyster Bar and Grill. Is that a Willie Nelson thing? No, just some guy named Willie.
Yeah.
All right.
A guy that owns a lot of property up there and some restaurants. But it's in the Vista in Columbia. And it was back when the Vista was just starting to grow. So it was one of the earlier popular spots. And they had live music, but it was solo acoustic. They set up their own PA and played a lot of covers, some of their own.
Yeah.
But I loved it. I was like, oh, this is great. You know, where I was in Oklahoma, live music was a big thing. I come out here in this new city. I'm 22, getting to meet these musicians, kind of getting plugged in. And Danielle Howell was one that played, and I was like, holy cow, who is that? I mean, you know, she just crushed it to a patio there in the Vista. Like, I was just like, I can't believe this is going on in a corner of a restaurant.
Right. Every place she plays is a stadium.
Yeah, no doubt, man. She is so good. And she'll be at our place August 12th at the club court there at the tennis center on Daniel Island. But she was there. I met her, and we've kind of been, you know, working together, friends since then. Other people, you know, Joel Rush, who plays a lot down here in the Charleston area, good friend of mine. And then Patrick Davis, who a lot of people will know, who's a songwriter in Nashville now, but he was playing there and he's from the area. And I just loved his music.
Yeah.
It was very country singer songwriter kind of stuff. He's very heavily influenced with like Bruce Springsteen, Lyle Lovett, Tracy Chapman, kind of sound like very cool stuff, but country kind of lyrically. So anyway, I just latched onto him. I was like, I dig what you're doing. He's like, here's a CD. We kind of became friends during that time. And whenever I opened my own place, well, I say my own place, me and a couple of guys, they kind of drug me along to be the young guy running the place. I called him. I was like, how do we get music in here? What do we do? And he told me, he said, I've been writing in Texas with these guys that you know, these names that you know that sell 10,000 tickets, you know, in random towns all over Texas, right? But out here, they sell 100.
Right.
And so he's like, we can get these guys out here. You know, we'll fly them out. I'll do a singer-songwriter swap with them kind of format, you know, so they'll be comfortable. And we put them up in a hotel, and you'll be able to have these guys like names like Corey Morrow, Django Walker, Stoney LaRue. All these guys are huge names out there. And I was like,
musicians.
Yes.
And yeah.
And I was like, this will be so cool. And it was almost a personal thing. You know, I was like, this will be for me.
Yeah.
But what we found was there were people dying that maybe from Texas, or maybe they were stationed there at Fort Hood, you know, and now they're back home, or they were stationed out there for a time. And so we found this little pocket of all these people that were just dying.
Dedicated.
Yes.
Came out. Yeah.
And so we found, you know, a pool of 1,000 people that 10% of them would come to these shows every time. So we could, this little bitty club, this is where we started. And every freaking show, we'd put 100 people in there, and they would all know exactly who it was. They knew every word to every song. They've been dying to see them live. And it was one of those things where afterwards, you know, I'm getting hugs and people are, you know, just freaking out, taking pictures with everybody. There was one of our first ones, the entire bar, and I say entire, it's 100 people, right?
Yeah.
Small little place. The band and everybody that came to the show went out into the street and took a group photo, like the entire people that came to the show. And
That's
it wasn't
so
like
cool.
5 people.
Yeah.
And so we found that and kind of figured that out. And we kind of rode that for several years. As we got bigger, we got the bigger names, or as those bands got bigger, we got bigger with them. But I think in these markets where it's tougher, that's, you know, what you got to do. Like the Royal American, they've got their niche, and they probably cater to us a couple certain genres mostly, like 80%, 80-20.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're pretty, if you're going to go there to see any live music, it's going to be rock and roll based most of the time. But they do hip hop shows. They'll do. I don't think I've ever seen a metal show there. They've done punk rock shows there. But and pop stuff too. Yeah. Like I said, that Pip the Pansy thing.
Yeah,
and Two Slices could fall easily into that too.
Okay.
Like it's very pop driven rock and roll. But it's funny because they all kind of work together anyway. But the guy who owns it and books everything, John Kenny, is a musician. He's a guy.
Yes.
He's about my age. He played in a band. We had very similar backgrounds. And when he decided to go into food and beverage and whatnot, and like he had this dream of creating this rock club, and I mean, he does everything with love. Everything is passion, but it just so happened like he made a place that's perfect for this environment, right? For that kind of thing. Now, the only thing that holds them back is it's tiny. I mean, the stage is only like 10 feet.
Really?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I've seen bands go up on there that are just completely like, how are we going to do this?
Like they pull up in their bus and they're like, they walk in like
10 minutes into their set, they're going, this is the greatest show we've ever played.
Doesn't matter. Absolutely. Yeah. I've seen that same look, like, you know, a $200,000 bus is out there, you know, loading in and everything. And everybody's walking by like, oh, this is, you know, and then 30 minutes into the set, they're, you know, going crazy and just loving it. Yeah. And certain clubs can do that. And I wasn't a musician, but I've always been really good at hiring. Yeah. And that's kind of my thing now. I'm good at surrounding myself with people. And so I found a sound guy, a production guy in Greg Rue, who was, little did I know he hadn't done a whole lot of production, but he was a musician and he was hosting this open mic that was just crushing it. And we booked one of those shows and he's like, I can run sound. And I don't know if he had never done it before, but he figured it out. Yeah. And so he was my sound guy for like 7 years. Yeah. And, and he was great. And he's a really good, like harmony singer. And so being a front of house sound guy, he's a little bit different than a lot of the production guys where that's his focus is the vocals out front and everything. And he just really makes it, he was always able to make it really nice for the fans, you know? And,
I think that's, I mean, what you're saying about that, having a really good sound person that you trust, that's also part of, I think, what the Royal American's secret to success is, because they have this amazing sound system in this tiny place. Yeah. And they have the most talented, you know, like Matt Zutel does the sound most of the nights that I'm there.
That's a big deal.
And he is a wizard. Yeah. He's a wizard because he makes everything sound huge and wonderful without making it like uncomfortable. But it's just, he knows how to figure out a room. I've seen him do sound in a bunch of places, but yeah, getting the right sound guy is all, because, you know,
you hear horror stories.
If you go to a show and it could be someone you're looking forward to see and the sound is terrible. I mean, I saw Bruce Springsteen at Madison Square Garden. This is like 20 years ago. But I remember like being so disappointed simply because it was too big, like to see a show. It was just too big for rock and roll to get that kind of feel. And the reason why they'd have video screens up, because you would see like Max Weinberg hit a drum and then like 10 seconds later you're hearing it. So it was like watching an out of sync video the whole time. Right. So you didn't want to watch the video because it was distracting. And you could hear everyone talking, because by the time you got to the back of the place, like the sound it was loud, but it wasn't like saturating everything and drowning out people. So you could hear everyone around you talking and you're like, this isn't really enjoyable. So I get where like a bad sound experience could kill your whole momentum.
And not even that, or not only that, but the being personable and working well with the bands that are coming in and the tour manager and, you know, whoever else you got to deal with. Because some sound guys can be difficult at times. And not that I ever worked with any or knew any, but I've heard stories.
Oh yeah, I've worked with plenty. I've seen that. It's a trick of when you're at a touring band to go talk to the sound guy and kiss their ass.
What kind of mood is he in? Like, you don't want that sound guy. Like if somebody's like, make sure he's in a good mood. Don't ask him about this. You're like, oh man, that's not a good sign. Yeah. And if you have a guy that like at the Royal American or like Greg that I had, they were, you know, they made friends with the musicians and they were always accommodating. Like that was their job one, was to make sure the artist was comfortable and happy with, you know, their on stage sound and all that stuff. And, but Greg did a great job. And now I think he's got a production company in Key West or something. I don't know. I haven't talked to him in a long time. But when we all split up, everybody kind of did their own thing, and I think he did pretty well. And I believe I was going through the online ticket orders last week, and I saw he bought 2 tickets to Angie Aparo. He's the one that actually convinced me to book Angie. It was one of my first first shows, and he was like, "You got to get this guy Angie Aparo." I was like, "Okay, never heard of him, had no idea." And sure enough, that's another niche guy that's just going to have a few hundred people show up every time.
The people who know,
yes,
and they're going to bring their friends.
Yes, absolutely, and they're going to be into it.
Yeah,
and an Angie Aparo show is. Have you ever seen him?
No.
Yeah, it's he puts on an amazing live show, and vocally he's incredible, and his interaction with the crowd, he's a pro, and he's been doing it a long time, and he's had success, and he knows his fans, and kind of in that singer-songwriter way, his fans are like invested in his music, you know what I mean? Like it's different than a someone that's what's the way to say it?
Someone that's more mainstream, or
and that may not be singer-songwriter focused, it's just a different relationship with the fans. Like they just lyrics.
If you're writing your songs, and the people are touched by them,
right?
Like a Phoebe Bridgers writes her music, her fans are kind of psychotic.
Yeah, right.
They're so into her that they will probably do illegal things in her name.
Yeah,
but then you have somebody like, I don't know, a Madonna. It's hard to get attached to the lyrics because she didn't write them.
Right.
You might like what she stands for and what she does.
Yep. And she puts on a heck of a show.
Or even Beyonce. Like people love Beyonce.
Yes.
And they treat her like, and deservedly so, like a goddess.
Yeah.
She's super talented. Yep. She's amazing. But a lot of her songs, she's, there's 50 people writing them and whatnot. So you don't, people might connect with the songs and they might love it, and they might love everything about like that she's bringing that to them. But you're not getting an insight into her like you would with a Phoebe Bridgers,
exactly.
who that came right out of her hand. Yes. Like she wrote that down. That was hers.
No,
so it's a different thing. Yeah,
absolutely is. And you get that with Angie for sure.
That's awesome.
He and it's just a fun show. And I think we're a week from tomorrow, or no, sorry, this is July 5th, possibly, right?
Yes, this should be coming out July 5th.
Yeah. So on the 8th, Thursday, he'll be playing at the adjacent to Volvo Car Stadium, and if you don't mind, we can talk about that.
Yeah, let's get into this because the whole. All right, let's preface it real quick so people understand. I kind of got connected with Travis around this new thing they're doing at the Volvo Stadium over in Daniel Island. Basically, it's this venue that hosts the tennis cup.
Yeah, the Volvo
Car Open. We get all the top tennis
pros
in here.
The largest pro women's tournament in the United States.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yes.
And I've seen Willie Nelson and Alison Krauss there. I saw Weezer and Churches and who else did I see there? Death Cab for Cutie there. I mean, I've seen a lot of really cool bands there. It's a great venue, but it's under construction right now.
Yes.
So somebody there came up with the idea of like, hey, well, let's use the space that's not under construction while we can. And that's where you come in too. So explain what's going on over at this venue.
So I'm the, like I said before, I'm the GM of food service, hospitality, F&B. And, that's been my thing for 5-6 years in large venues, amphitheaters, and now sports and entertainment venue. So I kind of got out of the concert promotion stuff, but my client, the folks I work for over there, they know my background, and we got to talking about, maybe we should do a little something on the patio, just some music to kind of get people interested, with the lockdowns, and people are finally getting out and about. And Daniel Island, has a good community that would be interested in something going on. There's a couple of new restaurants down there that are doing really well. So there's people moving about. Anyway, just to get people coming on the property and checking things out and seeing that, they're starting to see all the steel being put up, the huge cranes and everything. So people are talking now. It's a good time. And, they said, well, would you be interested in booking it and kind of putting it all together? And I was like, absolutely. They've been so good to me during this whole time. I was like, I'll cut the grass. I don't care. Whatever you need me to do, I'll book a show. That's fine. So they kind of just threw it out there and let me kind of run with it.
Yeah.
I would come up with ideas and just ask them, is this okay? And they're like, put it together and let's budget it out and see what it looks like. And when we started doing that, I thought, my goodness, I have no idea musicians around here or what's been going on for the last 10 years. And so I just called a couple friends, like I said, Joel Rush, who's a guy out of Columbia when I was there and moved down here in Key West. And he's great musician, excellent songwriter, good friend that I was like, who do you know? What do we need to do? And he was like, start talking to this person, this person, this person. Great. So then that sent me down to the Danielle Howells of the world that I knew from years ago. I knew she's down here, and she came down here right around the time I moved out of Columbia. And so reached out to them, and that just got me thinking, why not do the guys that were always successful, the guys and girls that were always successful for me and that were great to work with. And Angie Aparo was the first one that popped up. Danielle Howell, Bobby Houck of the Blue Dogs, the guys from Craven Melon.
Wow.
So those are some of the acts.
Yeah.
And
Lindsay Holler.
Lindsay Holler, I was a huge, so at the White Mule was a listening room I had in Columbia. And we were just like 4 years ahead of our time. We got this super cool spot on Main Street, downtown Columbia, while it was being developed and new businesses were coming in. And it was a great little window we had, but we would do a ladies' night, a singer-songwriter swap in the round kind of thing. And I can't remember who recommended Lindsay. I think it was like, might have been Kevin Oliver, who's a music writer, used to be for the Free Times there. He always had good insight on who to book, but Lindsay came up. And I remember checking her out online. That might have been, was that MySpace time? I don't know, but you could just you could just click on their music's right there. It's so great. And you could, back then you could put in a radius of where you were or where you wanted to look, and you could find out how many plays people had based on the radius on MySpace. It was such a great tool.
MySpace was kind of ahead of its time.
It was.
And I don't know what exactly happened there, but I think it was, if I remember correctly, it was just people were so sick of it constantly crashing.
Yeah.
And then like Friendster came along and they kind of had the same problem. And then I think when Facebook finally allowed people, they enticed people with the exclusivity.
They sure did. Cause I was like, how do I market to all these people on, because everybody's talking about Facebook and I wasn't in school.
Right.
And you couldn't have one. And I was like, hey, will you post this on your Facebook? And then when they opened it up, it was kind of this exclusivity for a while. And then when they finally, it just floodgates were open.
Yeah. Now unfortunately to me, it feels like a nonstop family reunion. You can't leave. So I just don't go on there anymore.
Yeah. I don't spend a whole lot. I post the kids on there, and, if my wife and I are doing something cool with the kids, that picture goes up because I don't live where all my family is. I'm like, gotta keep them, make sure they know what everybody looks like.
Yeah. I think after an election year, like this past year, I was so just, I don't want to hear it anymore. I'm so traumatized by everything going on. Besides that, as far as like pandemic, now you got this and I'm like,
it's a lot.
Oh, I didn't need to know my 8th grade math teacher is like a neo-Nazi. I don't need to know that. I was happier not knowing that.
Yeah. Ignorance is bliss.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
We're sharing too much with each other, I'm sure.
Exactly.
No. But yeah, so I found her and I looked at her, I was like, her voice is incredible. And so booked her, and then she played a couple of those, and we had some really cool shows with the ladies' night, and Lindsay did a great job. And I remember she was sort of from here. I'm not sure she lives here. She used to live in Columbia. And
she might be living in Columbia now.
Okay, I know at the time she was here. And
we've been trying to coordinate a day to get her in here to record an episode, simply based because I'd rather have her in person because she's got so many stories. Like she could probably do stand-up comedy if she wanted to. Like she's that entertaining just to listen to her talk. Yeah.
And so she was perfect for those singer-songwriter swaps, where you kind of get a chance to talk about your song and everything. And, but yeah, so she she came right to mind because I was like, I think she's in the area. And so reached out to her, and she was in immediately. She'll be opening up for Bobby of the Blue Dogs. And then Danielle's bringing her own opener, Pam Taylor, who's got an incredible voice, really cool stuff. But yeah, that was the idea. I was like, keep it simple. And even, their booking agents are still the same for most of them. I was like, I go back to that old email. I'm like, let's see if this is still their email. Send it. Like, oh, it is. They got back to me. Or it's definitely not their email anymore. But they already knew we had a relationship, and it was easy to just, plug and play.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be, we're hoping for a couple hundred people. We've sold a good amount of tickets. We want to sell more. We'll have, full bar out there. We're bringing in a food vendor called Classy Cheese Chick, and she does all these charcuterie boxes. And
charcuterie boxes.
Yeah.
If my wife listens to this,
oh my goodness,
her ears would be like,
Classy Cheese Chick. Check out her Instagram. It is impressive. Yeah, and she does a great job. So she'll be doing the food out there because all this is going to happen. Gates are at 5, opener at 6, headliner at 7. So it's all right there. Yeah, exactly. Right.
That's one of the things that I wish would carry over from the pandemic is early shows.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I was talking to somebody the other day about like, we have a 4-year-old, she'll be 4 in September, and a 2-year-old. And it's like bedtime is, we want each one take one, and that's how, and doing it by yourself is not easy. So yeah, my evenings. Though,
with these shows, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
But with these shows, are you envisioning a more family-friendly atmosphere, or is this more like a date night, get a babysitter, and enjoy a nice night out?
It's a good question. I haven't thought about that because I guess in my mind, the acts I booked were for, that earlier crowd that would be interested in the earlier time frame. And, definitely it's, that's a good question.
Yeah. Well, I guess you'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
You'll see. You don't have an age restriction.
No age restrictions. No.
But because Daniel Island itself is such a family oriented area.
Yeah. It'll be really interesting. And this first one, because first time for me in the market, first time for me to do an event at the space. They haven't done something like this in a few years. So it'll be an interesting first show. And in that, our setup, how we will be bringing people in through a certain gate that's not typical, and it'll be a part of the property that's it's not the stadium, it's not the clubhouse front door, so it'll be interesting to see how it works and if we change anything. And that's the good thing. It's an open space, and we'll be able to do it however we the most efficient way.
If enough families show up, it would influence you and be like, okay, maybe next time we'll include something, maybe an ice cream vendor or something like that.
Yes.
Just something to entertain the kids.
Yes, absolutely.
But I like the idea of that you guys are so open to mold this into whatever will serve the people that are coming.
Yeah. And it'll, we're being an independent venue and the way it's set up, we are very flexible and nimble. We can make adjustments where need be. But this first one, it's going to be, it'll be covered under a tent, a large tent. So we'll be out of the elements, stage set up under that same tent. We'll have the bar nearby.
I didn't envision this at all. This is super interesting.
Yep. And so it'll be, have lots of cool seating, lots of, kind of couch seating and stuff like that. So we're going to make it a very warm, especially for the singer-songwriter acoustic focus, it will have that vibe, kind of the listening room, but outdoors on the grand lawn of the.
So sound is going to be a big proponent of that too. You're really hoping for you're designing with the right people, a good sound experience.
Yes.
It's going to be comfortable.
Yes.
As comfortable as it can be. You're in a tent, but it'll still be in the evening.
It's an open wall tent, a nice, large festival style tent.
I'm sitting here going, man, you could even go somewhat circus themed, or not even, but like, I wouldn't say carnival, because that kind of, but it would be nice to have like a juggler, or something like that. You're right. Like a something. I'm thinking like throwing weird things out there, but like just something like the Unbound Ballet Project. They're an off-season professional dancers that when usually in the summer they'll put on kind of like ballet, like professional ballet performances in weird places. Like they just recently did stuff at Tradesman Brewery.
Okay. So are they doing something at the Citadel soon?
They did. I think they might have done something for Piccolo Spoleto.
Okay.
Around that same time, a couple of weeks ago. They might have done it. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But
I
things
think
like
I know what
that,
you're talking about. Yeah.
Like I imagine getting like including, not right now, you're still kind of testing the waters to see what people
absolutely
want. But I would love to see like in a place like that, like, oh, here's Jordan Igoe, she plays, and then while the set's breaking down, all of a sudden you've got this dance performance going on, and people are completely like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And then by the time they're figured out what's going on, okay, here comes your headliner.
Yeah. Or Angie.
Angie Aparo.
And if we can get a couple hundred of your listeners to come on out, then if we get this first show and show that return, then yes, we can start adding elements and get this thing to grow. And maybe it's something that operates alongside of the stadium when it opens, because what they want to do, and there's some great articles on the Daniel Island News about the stadium. They are making it so much. They're modernizing everything. I mean, it's going to be one of the nicest tennis stadiums on the women's professional circuit. It's incredible, and there's some renderings online you can find in those articles. But they wanted to make it more flexible for the concerts, where they were putting the shows in a tennis stadium and working around it. This will allow it to be a more fully functioning concert venue as well as a tennis stadium.
So it'll transform very easily, not easily I should say, but it'll be purposeful.
Yes, and there will be less build out on event days. Like they used to bring in all the staging, all the rigging, everything just for the show, and do it on the court. And that cut out 20% of the seats, maybe more. So now what they'll have is they'll have a stage house with it'll be covered where the stage will be. So they'll have all the rigging. Everything is already up there. They may have to bring out some staging, but minimal, because they'll have a flex space that'll be the loading dock for the tour will come right up and roll right onto the stage. So it's going to change everything for them as far as day of events. And it'll be, and the way they're adding seats is they're like, historically the bleachers they didn't have corners, they were the four sides. So they're filling in those corners up on the third tier. And so that'll add all that seating. And they're going from, concerts, they do 7,500 to 8,000 was kind of where they would, their capacity was, up to almost 11,000. So, So the tours we're talking about that are kind of skipping over some of this, that getting over that 5-digit number, hitting 10,000 plus.
Yeah.
That gets some tourists to look at you a little more. So they're going to up the number of concerts and put bigger shows in there. So it's going to be great.
That's so exciting.
Yeah. So if they get more shows and they want to activate the space for different things, there'll be a club there in the stage house that'll have like an open air patio bar where we can do private events, where we can do Daniel Howe album release parties, for 150, 200 people, intimate things. It's just going to have, rehearsal dinners, whatever. It'll be something that'll be operating year round, as opposed to the tournament, 10 concerts. It could be, I don't want to work myself to death or anything, but, we could do, 100 events in a year and with the facilities to be able to do it properly.
That's exciting, man.
Yeah, it's going to be great. And like I said, people go check out the Daniel Island News and search the Volvo Car Stadium. There's some really cool stuff about it, and it explains it better than I'll be able to.
Yeah.
But
well, because you have such a hard job right now in this transitional period, though, because it's such a different focus, because you're not looking to pack 11,000 people in there.
right.
You're looking to get 150, 200 people into a tent and make a good show out of it so that they come back.
Yeah. And it's been so long since I've been somewhat responsible for the people coming. Normally I wait for, the venue or the promoter or whatever, and then I just make sure I keep the guests happy and make them spend a lot of money, right? So get them good drinks and good food. And now, so even though it is just a couple hundred people, it's a couple hundred people.
Yeah,
and
it's a couple hundred people in the summer. People are traveling now that like life is somewhat getting back to normal. And getting people to show up to music is difficult. Yeah. It's not easy. Getting somebody to listen to new music is hard.
Right.
I kind of joked around. I had a hip hop artist in here, and I was joking with him. I was like, it's the hardest thing in the world, in my opinion, to get someone to listen to a song.
Yeah.
Like as a photographer, showing someone a picture is easy.
You're right.
Getting someone to maybe even watch a YouTube video, not that hard. Getting someone to listen to a song, like
especially if it's a song that's important to you, then it's really hard.
Oh yeah, and so it's a hard, because it is an emotional contract with the performer to like really invest in a song or a piece of art created by a musician. And it's not an easy thing to do.
No.
People aren't prepared sometimes.
It's hard to get your wife or your best friend to like actually listen to a song that you love. Be like, no, seriously, after a couple beers, like, no, listen to this song.
Oh, yeah.
Listen.
Well, and you're fearful in an atmosphere where it's very comfortable that people might forget that there's music and they just enjoy each other's company, which is kind of like what we were talking about before.
Yep.
When you have musicians playing in a restaurant type of thing.
Yeah. And which is, this lineup is, they're all commanding.
Yeah. They're not going to let you.
Right. And their fans are their fans. What we're hoping for is and with coming on here to talk to you about it, is get those extra 50 people out here that will go check them out online, go YouTube Angie Aparo and be like, oh my goodness, I got to check this guy out. And that's kind of your key. That's, we talk about like point of sale signage in bars and restaurants. You're like, why does Budweiser put all of these signs everywhere? Why do they have them everywhere? I was like, I'll tell you why. It's for my dad, because my dad doesn't have a beer he particularly drinks. He walks up to the bar, looks up, orders that.
He knows
I'll take that
one. It's consistent.
Yeah. And so it's getting that those additional people that come check something out that's cool. And like you said, it is hard. It's hard to get people to do something new.
I think you have something on your side though with this particular project. Simply because it's in an area, but there's not a lot of competition for nightlife on Daniel Island.
No.
I would say there's none.
Right.
It's a kind of a bedroom community. So it's a beautiful place for people to come to.
Place.
It's a beautiful place to get to, especially in the evening. During the day, trying to get to and from there, I mean, it's a little
be a little tight. Yeah,
get a little traffic.
Yeah,
but in the evening, it's great.
Yep.
At 6-7 o'clock.
Yep.
No problem getting there. All the contractors left at 3.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
and the product's good.
It's beautiful.
The talent's good.
But you're gonna be in for I mean, this sounds lame, but it's gonna be a safe environment.
Yeah.
As far as you're not gonna have like people standing outside trying to beg for money or something like that, which that's a place for that. Yes. That's fine.
Yeah.
But that keeps people away.
Sometimes it does. Yeah, you're right.
That don't know how to deal with that. You know what I'm saying? Like that keeps people, someone going to some of the older clubs that used to exist downtown Charleston, they might not want to go past the depot and see a crowd of people that are maybe homeless or something like that they're intimidated by because they just don't understand or know them.
Right.
But this is kind of like, you're going to Daniel Island, man.
Yeah.
The worst thing that's going to happen is you might get a speeding ticket.
Yeah, exactly. And there's plenty of people on Mount Pleasant in Mount Pleasant. I get corrected on that all the time. It's in Mount Pleasant. That don't ever go downtown and look for cool stuff that's outside of their, their regular spots over there. But you're right. It's going to be a very comfortable and very beautiful backdrop and just a really cool setting and really cool music. I really hope people can go check out Angie Aparo online whenever they get a chance. Bobby Houck and the Blue Dogs, who's been doing it for so long and just kills it. I mean, they just played the Windjammer, a couple weeks ago and packed the place, and just crushed it. And now you're going to get to come see him with just 150 people where he's going to sing his songs, talk about the songs and why he wrote them and how he wrote them. And he puts on a great show by himself, and he'll have one of the guys with him and kind of do an acoustic duo thing.
It's kind of so more like a behind the music type of,
that's kind of what we're hoping for,
that's awesome.
Yeah. And that's, and there's so many reasons to do the singer-songwriter acoustic thing. We can dial down the production. We're doing this, on without bringing in staging and rigging and all that stuff. So it's
no smoke machines,
right? No. Well, we'll see. Depending on what kind of side shows we get to add to it. You never know.
I'm always just thinking in the terms of like, okay, what can you do to make to get a buzz going? Like, hey, I went to this place and I saw this, and then they, even as simple as they had this amazing cheese charcuterie food truck thing going on or whatever they or something about it where people talk about it besides parallel to the experience of the music,
right?
Because those are the things that will get, like you said, get your dad in there who just wants to hang out and have a nice drink and be with some people he likes.
And you're right that the Daniel Island community is, there will be folks that would be interested in just coming and checking out what's going on, because it's such a small community. So it's going to be interesting. I'm
excited to see not only what you have in store, but what it kind of grows into.
That's the key. Yeah. So we gotta pack out this first run of these, and then who knows what we can do in the second run, because right now these 4 that are announced, and by the time this comes out, they will all 4 of this first block will be on sale and ready to go. I think right now Angie and Bobby are both on sale, and let's see, Angie's July 8th, Bobby Houck July 29th, and then Daniel Howell August 12th, Craven Mellon, August, what is that? 14 days, 26th. Those will be on sale by the time this is out. So
fantastic.
Yeah. And
I'll link all of that in the show notes here. And I'll be sure to kind of let people know, especially when I know the people playing as well.
Right.
I'm very supportive of
yeah, man.
People who've been on my podcast, especially.
Is Jordan going to be able to get in on this before the show?
I don't know. I haven't really talked to her.
If y'all haven't listened to her episode, go listen to it. It's so good. I really enjoyed it. And she's gonna kill it. And she knows Angie. They've played together before, so there'll be some chemistry there, which will be really neat to see.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, man. It's gonna be fun. And
I'm excited about it.
Promo code for your fans.
Okay.
JWN.
Okay.
So if they buy their tickets through here, make sure they use your promo code.
Okay. And, what's the place? Where are they going to get the tickets?
Eventbrite.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Perfect. I will link all that. So eventbrite.com.
Yep.
Would it be easier if they search the venue? Or just each artist?
Eventbrite, Angie Aparo.
Yeah.
I'll get you those
depending
links.
on which show you're interested in. You should just go to all of them.
Yes.
Are you guys doing like a summer series like package?
Oh, I'm going to try and do that.
Or maybe get like a punch card, and if they come, they get
there you go.
A free T-shirt at the end of it or something like that.
No, that's a good idea. That'd be more manageable. But the foresight of being able to do the package and going forward, absolutely we'll do that, because like you said, with that community, there could be 50 or 60 people that would come to every one of them. Like it'll be their regular thing, in the summers. But yeah, no, that's a good idea. And definitely want to,
how about we do this? I've got something so completely out of left field.
Oh, let's hear it.
But I know that this community, totally separate from the music community, likes to have things to do like this.
Okay.
What about talking to, this is so funny because you have a show coming up like a week out from right. but just in the future, this could be fun because it's very self-centered for me because I like to run. And the Charleston Running Club set up an event, have a 5K the night, and you end up at the thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, if you you do the 5K, you're in it, that gets you a beer and into the show or something like that. Yeah, that's a good idea. So you're a runner.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm big into running and so I never thought of a way. This is the first time I even thought, how do you combine something, music and running like that? And I'm like, there's a Charleston beer runners that do they'll run a distance to a brewery or a bar.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've seen that, and when I was up at Jiffy Lube Live in Northern Virginia, the old amphitheater up there, we had a big thing in the fall that I can't remember if it was a 5K or what it was, but live music. They came in there, food trucks and everything, and beer, and it was a big deal.
Well, the live music for the biggest race around here is the Cooper River Bridge Run,
of course,
and they have bands set up every quarter mile, like on the track on the course. So, of course, that's probably something that would have to be planned out maybe for next season. But because I don't know what the permits would look like for that.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I wonder if there's some kind of running club on Daniel Island that we could easily,
I mean, where you wouldn't have to close down roads. They can run on the sidewalks.
They can just run right up and come on in. Yeah. No.
You kind of have to do it guerrilla style because closing down roads when people are trying to drive to a venue, it's not good.
I mean, we have to get permits for this on it's city property. That's why we have to get permits for this for anything over X size of a tent. Like for this,
every little thing. Yeah.
So imagine, closing
sound
down the streets.
ordinances and
that's when they were like, what kind of curfew are you thinking? Like 9, like perfect. So they've never had complaints from a show in the stadium, but when they do stuff too late, like on the patio or something, that's when they get complaints. Cause I guess directional wise, everything kind of carries out there. And it's like, so curfew at 9, early evening, come get a couple beers and watch the show, and you're not out too late.
And you can just jump over the bridge. Yeah. If you want to keep hanging out, you just jump over the bridge and go back over to a Royal American.
There you go.
Like that. You're not that far.
See, that's what we'll package something with those guys.
Or you're heading to you can head into Mount Pleasant, head over to Shem Creek, whatever it is.
Well, the Royal American, I'll have to get out to see a show. I want to meet these people because it sounds very familiar to the kind of places I used to run or go to in Columbia.
And it's an interesting crowd of people that go there.
Yeah,
there's not a type.
Right.
It's diverse.
Yeah,
it's everybody. So you'll have a lawyer sitting next to a guy who is a mechanic at the bar drinking together.
In my polo and golf shorts, you wouldn't think of it. I thrive in those environments. I always have. I don't know why. It's kind of I get along so well with the musicians and artists for some reason. My mother was an artist and kind of get a little bit of that right brain. But I've always kind of been attracted to those kind of clubs and stuff like that. There's some on State Street in West Columbia. I don't know if you're familiar with that area, like New Brooklyn Tavern.
I think I might have seen Murder by Death there once.
Okay. Yeah. Great little club. Great guys.
Is that the place where you go into the club?
Yes.
It's the
recessed floor where the stage is. Yes.
Yeah. So Murder by Death there.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic.
And I used to bartend at a bar just a few doors down called State Street Pub. And they like the same crowd, except State Street Pub was a sports bar, but all those people from this kind of, punk club hung out over there. And it was just always this wild mixture of people. And I loved it so much. It's just, so that's kind of what that sounds like over there. So I gotta go check them out.
So let me ask you a question.
Okay.
We'll do all we'll package this up, but I have to ask you this question just from a music standpoint.
Okay.
Given this kind of singer-songwriter-ish kind of behind the music style, unplugged type of environment that you're creating, who, living or dead, who's the ultimate get for you to book into something like this? Like, who do you think like this?
Oh, sky's the limit.
Sky's the limit. Could be a Bruce Springsteen. It could be somebody you know from your childhood. Doesn't matter.
Okay. So I've booked my favorite songwriter in the world before, so I won't use him, Jason Isbell. Yeah. And I got, right after he left the Truckers, I got him on like his first or second tour solo. Incredible. Wow. So I managed to book him a couple times. So that one checked off my list. Ryan Adams was one I always wanted to get, never quite got, but there's
these days it's a tough one.
I know.
He might play it now. He might play
You're
it.
right. Yeah, you're right.
He's still got enough fans that either don't know what they don't follow the social stuff going on with him, or they just I am a huge Ryan Adams fan. Yeah. And I'm having a hard time. He put out 2 records recently. Yeah. And I'm having a hard time even making it through them. I'm just I'm like,
it's in the back of your head.
It's one thing to be a jerk, but like, there's some stuff that he was doing that was, I can't. It's hard because there's some of the, I've seen him so many times and had such good times at his shows and like, and he's an asshole. Like, that's kind of comes with the territory.
Always been, before any of this, he was eccentric and kind of difficult, and no, for sure. But talk about singers, songwriter fans that are invested in lyrics, like Ryan Adams, for sure.
He's, regardless of how awful he may be, he's a damn talented poet.
Yeah, if not him, Jason Isbell is the songwriter of our generation, and in my opinion. But so back to your question.
Yes, living or dead, could be someone who's no longer with us.
Yeah, living or dead. So I think living or dead, sky's the limit, small acoustic room. I'll tell you who, and this is a surprising one, and I'll have good reason for it. John Bon Jovi.
Nice.
Yeah. So Jason Isbell, Ryan Adams, but Bon Jovi was my favorite when I was in 1986 when I was in first, second grade or whatever.
Yeah.
In one of the documentaries, he's sitting down in a booth and he's talking to the documentarian, and they're kind of just talking about shows and arenas and these big shows that he's played. And he says, people always ask me, John, don't you ever want to go on one of those tours and play the small clubs, the acoustic shows, singer-songwriter kind of things? He's like, no. He's like, absolutely not. He's like, I want to play the desert and sell it out. So with that being said, I'd want to be able to get him to play one of those small singer-songwriter things, just because he wouldn't want to.
Well, yeah, I imagine.
And it would be amazing for me. Like, that would blow my mind.
I imagine I saw him, was it the Super Bowl kickoff? Back when I used to work at MTV in Manhattan. And I think it was, I forget what, it might have been the NFL had some like thing going on where they had him playing. It might have been just the beginning of the season, or it might have been something for the Super Bowl, but they closed down Times Square and he played a show. And so I sat, because I was right there, I just watched it. And the guy is, no matter what you think of Bon Jovi, you will stop and watch. You will be impressed.
Yeah.
Super, super talented showman, and just like bigger than life. He's one of those people like, all eyes are on him,
And I get, all my musician friends, they give me a hard time about that one, because I would say that's my favorite band of all time.
Really?
But yeah, it is. And it's a nostalgia thing. Yeah. And it's, it's just what it was for pre-Crush album. When that came out, I was kind of, things changed around 98 when that album came out. But it's just, I grew up on it. And And
but yeah, Slippery When Wet and like all those records, the first few records were
absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, his songwriting is lyrically, you know, very underrated, but yeah, my musician friends, the ones that are, you know, way above that, always give me a hard time, but I, you know, if in the right environment, my answer is Jason Isbell or, you know, we can go back to the Willie Nelsons of the world or, those guys. And that's kind of the other music I, you know, grew up on was, the Johnny Cash and Waylon and those guys. But, you know, I kind of keep it, and not now, I'm not keeping to myself anymore, but Bon Jovi, big part of my life when I was, you know, growing up. But yeah, that would be interesting. I always love that quote. You know, he's like, I'll sell the desert out. And you try to imagine like, how many people is that? But yeah, that would be a cool show to do, you know, for 100 people for sure.
Oh yeah. I mean, I imagine having that experience. So back when I worked at MTV, the VH1 was also, it was all the same property, you know, Viacom, CBS at that time, they were merged, then they split. I think they're back together. Who knows? They're all complicated.
Yeah.
But I would go to tapings for like the Behind Music or Unplugged, those type of things. And and then they had this thing called Crossroads.
Yeah.
And so I got to sit in a small theater and watch John Mayer.
Yeah.
And Brad Paisley.
Great.
Right?
Yeah.
And I sat there and I had never, ever given John Mayer, I didn't know who Brad Paisley was. Because first of all, I'm living in New York. Country might as well not exist. And for you know what I'm saying? It's just not a thing. Like pop country, I should say. And so I didn't know who Brad Paisley was. And this is going back, I guess, 2000, maybe 99, 2000, maybe 2001. I'm not sure. Somewhere around there. Somebody was probably able to Google it.
Yeah.
I have a computer here, but it's too much effort.
That sounds about right.
But yeah, somewhere around the early 2000s, maybe. And John Mayer had, I think, maybe 1 or 2 albums out, but he was huge.
Yep.
Pop singer, right? Not known as a guitar player at all.
Yeah.
He comes out with these two are playing before it even starts taping. These guys are, these two are.
Of course they were.
They're having the best time with each other, just playing like Clapton covers.
Yeah.
In front of a small audience of people. And I had brought my wife because she was a big John Mayer fan. And I swear at the end of the night, I was like, this John Mayer guy is the shit.
Yeah.
He is unbelievably talented. Like, I had no idea he could play guitar like he could. And just his voice was amazing. Like, his band was impeccable because it was his band, I believe, that was playing. And Brad Paisley was kind of, they were switching off and playing covers of each other's songs. And and he was really good too. But John Mayer kind of was the next level.
Really? Because I mean, from Brad's guitar playing, monster too on the guitar.
He is.
But John Mayer's just that much better.
John Mayer's got some like secret sauce going on there.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is. He's got that it factor that goes beyond just, you know, talent, like something else. Like where I was just like, holy cow, this guy's. It was almost embarrassing. Yeah. And then I think the world started to catch up once he did that blues trio.
Yes, I was going to say, a buddy of mine, Mike Atwater, who's an excellent guitar player, and he huge Brad Paisley fan, and huge John Mayer trio fan. Like, he got me turned on a John Mayer trio back when he started doing that, and because the same thing, like, no, John Mayer, seriously, check it out. And I'm like, really?
Yeah. Well, there's a track on that new Ryan Adams record where he plays guitar on it.
Really?
It's well, the single came out. It was funny. The single for this album came out right before all of the controversy kind of blew up about John Mayer. Well, not John Mayer. I'm sorry, Ryan Adams.
He had some controversy too at times.
Yeah,
well, not like that.
No. But yeah, right. So the single had come out, and John Mayer, you know, it was billed like John Mayer's playing guitar on. And he has this really cool guitar solo on it. Nothing too spectacular. It's just melodic and it fits the song.
Right.
But that's it's the name of the song. This is gonna throw my rating off on my explicit rating, but it's called "Fuck the Rain," which I
haven't listened to it yet, but I've seen it.
And
pop up on stuff.
It's a good song.
Okay.
And And yeah, they had a relationship going, and I don't know where that is now.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. There was a time where Isbell and Ryan Adams were doing a lot of stuff together, and they were like tight. And then after all that happened, you haven't seen a whole lot. Like I wonder where all his stuff is going or what's going on. And that stuff, when it all came out, I saw the articles and was like, this is not good. And I never really got further into it. I don't know where it all ended up.
He kind of
really
disappeared for a while.
Yeah.
And then he started to come back out of it. And I think the problem I had was he was supposed to release 3 records that year. Like he was going to do like bam, 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 like Guided by Voices style, just annihilate his fans with tons of new music. And now that, some time has passed, but he's putting out, I think he's resequenced the records, but I don't know if he's actually recorded new music for them. But these are songs that were written back when he was doing all that stuff. So listening to him now, that, and you're like,
I know. That's why I say I've stayed away from following the news on it and everything. So I don't know where it is or what ended up happening. And
I'm a big fan of Redemption. Yeah. And I would love to see a guy like that kind of get his act together.
Yeah.
And genuinely like become a better person out on the other side of it. But it's not there yet. I'm not there yet. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ryan Adams was, he would be such a good person to have at one of these things. Cause he's also entertaining live to his
he puts on a rock show. You wouldn't think,
great.
But it's a rock show for sure.
His guitar player, was it Todd Weissenberger or something like that?
That sounds right.
Yeah. Yeah. That guy's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen him a few times, not as many as I'd like. And, always good show down here in Charleston, a time or two, and Township in Columbia. Yeah. It's a great venue there. But yeah, I hope he does get it together, because if he does, some great music will come out of it. I mean, just look at Jason Isbell's, rise after, getting sober and all that stuff, and new wife, new situation, man, just incredible stuff came out of that.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Yeah, seeing him live, by the way, is because he just knocks you over the head with all of these amazing songs. And sometimes you're like, I forgot this song was his.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
It was one of those things, like I still like the Truckers, but whenever he left and put out his solo stuff, it was like, oh no, I like Jason Isbell. Like Patterson Hood, and it's great and everything.
And the Truckers put on a great show.
Yes.
Like I've seen them since then, and they're still fantastic live.
Yeah.
So.
And I've seen Patterson solo, do a solo gig before over at New Brooklyn Tavern. He might have had somebody playing like a little jazz kit or something, but yeah, puts on a great show. But I realized my love for the Truckers was really Jason Isbell, because his songwriting, it's incredible. And
the guy knows his craft.
And he's filming a movie now. I don't know Killers of the Flower Moon. Have you heard of that book?
No.
So it's written about the Osage Indians back in, I guess, early 1900s, when all this oil was found on their land, and crazy stuff happened, as you can imagine. The money got taken away at a certain point, and some murders, and some like these judges assigned these kind of custodial situations with some folks there, some native, or not native, the Oklahoma people there, and they figured out ways to screw them out of their money. Yeah. And true story, kind of the FBI as it is kind of came into its own during this whole time, investigating all these murders. And but anyway, he's in it. Sturgill Simpson's going to be in it, and it's being produced. I'm not going to say who the director is. It's a big name. I'll say it's Scorsese. I hope I don't get that wrong. But the Oklahoma Department of Tourism is like putting all their budget into this, and has a big part in it. And it's based on this book that came out a few years ago and just blew up. And so they were like, well, we got to get a movie out of this ASAP. But it's going to be good. The book is incredible.
Do you feel like Oklahoma, by the way, as a state, is kind of going through a period of reckoning with their past, with something like that, and then the whole massacre
that
kind of was hidden from public knowledge for so many years.
Yeah. I mean, I went to school, kindergarten through 12th grade, a few years of college in Oklahoma, and not once was it introduced to us.
Yeah.
And we took Oklahoma history, every other year or
Exactly.
half of every year. I can't remember how it worked, but yeah, I don't recall that. I knew about it before most people,
Right.
but it still wasn't something that was taught in the schools there. So I knew about it, as an adult. But yeah, inexplicably. I mean, look, the history books, they omit things that they omit things that would devalue your faith in government.
Right.
And government makes textbooks. So they're going to take stuff out of there that would, make you look at them in a different way. And, that's World War I's not in your history textbooks for a good reason.
Right.
If you find out why there was World War II, why the certain people rose to power, it's because of what we did World War I.
Created.
You just want to see that we took down the bad guy, not how the bad guy came to be, and that's on us, and nobody wants to talk about that. But yeah,
but let me ask you a question though. We're going so far.
Oh boy.
But do you think as a kid, if you learned all of these things, that they would change your opinion about America, or would they make you go like, oh, we made this mistake and we've learned from it and now we're moving on. Let's not do that again.
No,
instead of opening the door to do it again.
I think it would change my mind earlier about government and how they operate and why they do the things they do.
You don't think the transparency of it would make you a little bit more trusting, knowing that like, hey, we know what you've done, so now we've got your eyes on you? No,
because they keep doing it after they get caught.
Yeah.
they don't have to stop. They have that monopoly on force. They get to do what they want, and we can't stop them. So I mean, maybe people's eyes would open up earlier, and that would be a good thing.
I just remember so many things. The first time I ever heard about like redlining, and you if you're not familiar with redlining, it was basically zoning districts where black people couldn't buy houses in certain neighborhoods, and they would draw red lines around neighborhoods that they could or couldn't buy. And real estate agents had to, they were kind of in on it as well, but it was much, they were kind of like the grunts in this.
Sure.
It was really the politicians drawing the lines.
And it was bankers
but now we just call it gerrymandering, and we still don't think it's problematic.
No, of course. And with the redlining, there was the reasons the banks wanted to do it is because the government was subsidizing loans, and they wanted to figure out a way not to be responsible for loans where they didn't want to put them, even though they were being subsidized. And it's
now it's about like identifying, hey, that person that looks like this is not going to vote for this person.
Yeah.
So we'll just change the districts so that they don't have the power to change the power structure.
Right.
And it's mind blowing that we allow that, and we know it's happening.
Yeah.
So I don't know, if we grew up knowing all of these things, would we change them? Because we're just accepting the stuff that goes on today.
Yeah. I mean, we know exactly what's going on in the last year, and we're
still
kind of just accepting it.
We're watching the act of making voting harder.
Right.
Because when in the 1 year we were kind of forced to make it somewhat easier.
Yeah.
It had a drastic change.
Yeah. That's true.
And because more people showed up.
Yeah.
And there's something completely disturbing to me that your way of staying in power is not to make better policies that appeal to people, but to just stop those people from voting.
Yeah, to fix the game. That's the whole.
And it's so easy.
Idea.
I'm like, hey, you'll still have the power if you just, I don't know, make policies that work for people.
Yeah, I mean, but for them, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like if they can regulate their way to stay in office, or policy their way to get their buddies rich, then and once they get to that point, there's no bringing them back, and the percentage of politicians that I find admirable trustworthy is probably not even in there. I mean, I would put it below 1%,
It's hard. Yeah. Cause they all have an MO. They're professional fundraisers constantly.
Yeah. And that's part of it. Yeah. And, there's probably a better percentage than 1% that go there, do it with intentions to do the right thing, but they can't once they get there. It's,
the slow moving wheel.
Yeah. It's wild. But yeah, I think regardless of the outcome of if we would have known those things or if they were in the textbooks, they should be in the textbooks.
Yeah. We should know about them.
Yeah.
Because you got to imagine what's our Tiananmen Square.
Right.
Like, what's the thing that the rest of the world knows, and we're just sitting there going, like, what are you talking about? I never heard of this.
Maybe there should be more textbooks.
Yeah.
There could be textbooks that show all of this history, and then there could be the ones over here that don't show, and let us decide which ones we want to look at and what we want to know.
Yeah. Well, it's tough. It's tough when the people who have control of writing the history.
It's a monopoly.
It's so bad.
Yeah.
And then when different political factions will create books that tell their version of history,
of
and
course.
so now you get confused because now you have all these different retellings, and you're like, well, what's the actual truth?
I know.
Where's the middle ground here, where these actually come together?
Yeah.
And so I think as a kid, I would probably have rather have known.
Of course.
And it probably wouldn't have made me more or less distrustful, because finding out after the fact is instantly distrustful.
Okay, I see what you're saying, that knowing now that you know later that you've been lied to, and it's not because they admitted it, it's because people started talking about it, they found out about it. So yeah, of course that would make you less trustful than if they would have told you up front. Yeah, it's kind of.
I wonder how many people would be less scared of getting.
Not the crime is the cover up, but it's definitely the crime here.
Well, how many people would be less scared of getting a vaccine, this vaccine that we're all, dealing with right now?
If there was transparency throughout history.
If they could trust, because you've got now on both political sides, you have large portions of like the Black community who don't trust the government, and so they're not taking this vaccine. Then you have large swatches of conservative people who don't trust the government, they're not taking it.
Yeah.
And so you have factions on both sides who don't trust the government and don't want to take this vaccine. And all it's hurting is themselves and everyone else who kind of did the research as far as saying, hey, like, this isn't just America, like the rest of the world.
Yeah.
This isn't like the thing was invented by like some German lady that
RNA
technology. And
no, you're right. Transparency would make a big difference. And to that point, back to that
building
book
trust.
that book / movie, check out the book, Flowers of the Killer Moon.
Flowers of the Killer Moon.
It's incredible. And I can't wait to see the movie. I mean, I can imagine, like, if you had to pick, some musicians that you think would be good actors, Jason Isbell and Sturgill Simpson, some pretty good, you know what I mean?
Like, I could picture it.
Yeah, I can see that. So it'll be very interesting. And I have a cousin that works for the Department of Tourism. That's whenever we were traveling back and forth home, she was keeping me informed on how the process was going. So it'll be neat. And I really hope I didn't get that director wrong, but I think it's Scorsese. It'd be cool.
Is it going straight to Netflix? Because I think that's all he's doing these days.
I don't know.
He might have some sort of deal.
Yeah. And it might not be him.
I don't know.
But it's a cool book. And it's, to your point, like, it's something in Oklahoma. They didn't teach us about this growing up. Yeah. It's unbelievable. And
I've asked that question of other people I know from Oklahoma and
about the Tulsa.
And they'll say, well, we heard about like the riots.
That's kind of,
So they kind of
experience.
So the information that gets passed on is like that the Black community were the aggressors.
Yep.
And that they had risen up and caused a riot and people fought back. And it's like, I don't know if that's actually what happened.
No.
So what that has to do with music in here, I don't know.
but
I do hope that people will go. I'm going to link to the shows, to the Eventbrite.
Yeah.
Pages. You guys don't have Like, does the tennis stadium have like an Instagram account?
Yes. Yeah. Volvo Car Open, Volvo Car Stadium, Facebook page has got the links there.
Perfect.
Volvo Car Stadium.
I think that's the way you get people to act right now.
You can click right there and it'll take you right to the tickets.
The least amount of clicks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, go to their Instagram and then they can find it easily.
Yep. And if you're on an Eventbrite mailing list, hopefully more tickets we sell, that algorithm will kick in and it'll start popping up, everywhere. And, but yeah, Eventbrite, Facebook, Volvo Car Stadium.
What about you?
Me?
Do you have any
not
forward facing thing you want to promote?
No,
no Instagram or anything like that?
No, not at all. No, I'm here representing the stadium and, but yeah, come buy some drinks from me. I'll be there. And my bartenders will be mixing drinks and we'll have some good stuff. And I'd love to say hello to anybody, especially if you do come and you heard me on here, come say hello. That'll be
definitely.
I'll get a kick out of that.
Yeah, I'd get a kick out of it too.
See that we can track things and see. Yeah, we got some traction here.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, I think that pretty much wraps it up. I'm excited for what you're doing here. I'm excited for anyone doing something in the creative arts community and trying to, it looks like you're tailoring it to the community, to that area, but you're not just limiting it. You're bringing in people like Angie's from Atlanta, right?
Yeah.
So you're bringing people from out of town to come play and sit down and like, these are the top of their, like, you know what I'm saying? These are super professional musicians that you have coming in here performing. And so even if you're not familiar with them, you're going to enjoy yourself.
Quality. Yeah. It is talent for sure. Angie and Jordan, that's going to be a really cool show. Oh, yeah. And that was the idea, getting Angie in there, who's a more regional name to kind of kick it off. Cause we announced it. Everything was, promoting a show, you want the 12-week mark, you want the 10-week, 8-week, and then as you promote it, we came in at 5 weeks, so we got to get it going. And Angie's a good name to have on it. And I think everybody will have a great time. And I really appreciate you letting me come on here and talk about it. And
I'm glad we did this.
I hope everybody goes and listens to that Jordan Igoe episode. I loved it.
And hopefully I can get Lindsay Holler in here before she does that show. And I know she's got something coming up at the Galliard as well, but this is going to be... That's
right. Yeah, kind of a showcase thing.
Thing, but this is going to be a totally different vibe. This is going to be more like...
You got to get Danielle in here.
Yeah. I don't know if I can contain her.
She's so much fun. Yeah, she'll crush it. She's great. Yeah, she won't sit down the whole time like I did, probably.
No, I'll have to get her a handheld.
Yeah, for sure. That'd be great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
All right. Before you get going, don't forget to subscribe to the show if you haven't already. And also, you can check out more at jwnpod.com or follow me on Instagram at JoeLatex. That's at JOEL, the number 8X. Have a great day. Peace.